So, what I'm going to be talking about tonight is how to create a flexible income doing meaningful work as a life coach or as a therapist, as a healer. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the biggest mistakes. Now, I'm going to focus on myself here because I made, thankfully, most of the biggest mistakes at the very beginning of starting out as a coach commercially and how to actually avoid them. And you're going to discover what a day in the life of a life coach can be and the earning potential. And we're going to be looking at three different business models. We're going to be looking at business model number one. What do average coaches do? When I say average, I don't mean average in skill, I mean average in income. And business model two is what do six-figure coaches do? So they're people earning over 100,000. And business model number three is what do seven-figure coaches do? And they're coaches who are earning $1 million plus. So they all do very different things. So I want to cover what that actually looks like. And I'm going to debunk some of the biggest myths. And I'm also going to look at the skills and the expertise that you really need to be able to be very efficient and effective and how to actually get started. So I'm going to start with the biggest mistakes and how to avoid them. So before I do that, I just want to quote this particular gentleman, and he's Adam Osborne. I don't know whether you've ever heard of him, but he was the inventor of the very first successful portable computer. And he said the most valuable thing that you can make is a mistake. He said you can't learn anything from being perfect. And I completely agree with that statement because most of us, what we do is we often try to get things absolutely perfect, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, it's actually going to be helpful. So the thing that we have to understand from this perspective, when you're starting out, you've got to be okay with just getting started and don't concern yourself about whether you're getting it right or certainly getting it perfect. I made the most of my mistakes at the beginning. So here were some of my mistakes. The very first mistake that I made wasn't actually technically a big mistake. But what I did is I focused on life coaching only, and I graduated as a life coach back in 2002. But the truth is, it wasn't enough. The skills that I actually needed to be effective and efficient, it never really gave me what I needed. It gave me a base, it gave me a structure, but it really didn't go on from the base. So the next big mistake I made was my niche really wasn't a niche. I positioned myself as a success coach, but the truth is, as a success coach, like most people want success, but to try to market to everybody is a mistake because it is so hard to market to everybody. And you're much, much better actually positioning yourself by taking a niche. The next mistake that I made was my pricing was too low. So when I first started as a coach, I was charging $175 for a session, and it was just way too little because what it actually did is it never created enough income to start paying for things like websites, marketing, being able to, even create the fixed costs to really run a business. And I know some people go, well, $175 is a lot of money per hour. Well, the truth is you're not working at the beginning every hour of your day. So the pricing wasn't the best way to go. And besides, it never ever pays to start marketing your price point because if you market your price point, you'll always be stuck at, negotiating price and everyone's going to be negotiating on price. you're actually better off positioning yourself or marketing yourself for the problem that you solve, not the price that you charge. Because you're not a supermarket. Now, the next problem that I made is life coaches typically like to help people. But the thing is that what I would do is I would create an opportunity to almost sample the coaching to some degree. And what I found was that when you do that, of course, you don't want to go halfway and not fix a problem. You want to go the whole way and fix the problem. The problem with that is that by the time you get to the end, there is no problem. So who's going to pay for coaching when there is no problem or there is no goal? So that was equally another mistake that I had made. So you're better off at the very, very beginning to talk to your clients, find out what their pain points are, find out what they need, find out all the good information to be able to help them, but don't help them in the session because you'll find yourself actually coaching. It's a little bit like you don't go to a doctor and say, I want to try you out. I've got this problem. Let's see how you handle it. And if you handle it really well, then I'll appoint you as my doctor. We just don't do that. It's unprofessional and it really doesn't work. The next mistakes that I made was that I told everyone that I'm a coach. Now, that's not a smart idea. And the reason that it's not a smart idea is because nobody buys a coach. What people buy is they buy a solution. So you're much better off telling people the problem that you solve, and people will buy that, but people won't buy you as a coach. It's a little bit like going out and saying, I'm a healer, I'm a healer, I'm a healer. People, the next question they'll ask is, what do you heal? So the next mistake that I made, excuse me, is I built my coaching business. Now, that might sound like something that you logically do, but logic is not the only friend you have in building a business. The thing that you've got to be doing whenever you're working with people and helping them as a consultant or as a coach or as a mentor, what you're better off having is building products. And what I mean is products that solve problems. And that is a much, much better way to grow your coaching business. And the next mistake was that clients came quite sporadically. And the reason for that is that I had no systems, no structure. And what you typically need is you need a structure. Like if someone is interested in working with you, what you're absolutely better off doing is creating an opportunity where essentially what you're doing is you're taking them through a process. Now, that's everything from an introductory process, like what is your introductory process? What is the process that you take them through to show them how you can help or what you can do? What is the process that when someone is interested that you take them through a sales process? And I know some people will go, "Oh, sales, it's a terrible thing." No, it's not. Everybody on planet Earth is selling something. You're selling your opinion, you're selling your politics, you're selling your religion, you're selling, ideas. We're all selling something. So we have to actually have sales systems as well. Because when people come and inquire, they need to be treated a particular way so that you can show them everything that they need. So all their questions are all answered. Now, the biggest problem that I had and the biggest mistake that I made was choosing to be invisible. Now, the truth of that is that if you kind of hide behind your computer or you don't put yourself out there in a particular way, then very few people are actually going to know your talent. So there are a few skills that you really need to have in order to really start to build your business. And my early mistakes in coaching will at least give you some idea of some of the things that I completely got wrong in the beginning. The next thing that I'd like to cover is okay, let's say you're getting it all right. What does a day in the life of a coach actually look like? So, I want to take you through my focus and what I do. And in the very beginning, this also could have been a mistake, is I was working 7 days a week. That is ridiculous. And I burnt out twice. In the 24 years that I coached, there were two times that I completely burnt out. And it was because I was working too hard, too long. So what I did is I re-engineered my business to work 4 days a week. And so that means I had a 3 day weekend. Like tonight is officially the end of my week. As at tomorrow, it's my weekend. And it's great because you can rejuvenate. You put so much heart, soul, and time, not only the coaching hours that you're doing, but also the follow up, answering emails, looking at marketing. The thing that you really want to do is create space so you can definitely wind down and so you can definitely rest. Because that way you're going to come back on Monday and you're going to feel refreshed and you're going to feel like you really want to work. So this is I think, a really important thing. Structure your week the way that's really going to energize you. I coach typically 4 clients a day, 4 days a week. And all of my clients now, I do that via Zoom, via computer. And where once upon a time I used to work in a clinic. But the thing that I noted is that the travel time, if there was any complaints that I got from my client, it was the traffic, and all the struggle that they had to get in order to make the appointment on time. But when it came to Zoom, there were no issues at all. They could basically get in their pajamas and get behind a computer and get coached. What I also do is typically I run 2 trainings a week. Currently, I'm running two. In fact, I'm about to run three. So that's going to change from time to time. But those 2 trainings each week, again, I don't do them in a room like I used to, which is the picture on the right. I now do it on Zoom, which is the picture on the left. Again, it's from the convenience of your own home. I love the fact that I have dust on my suitcases and I'm not living out of a suitcase like I used to and traveling endlessly, particularly if you have a family and you want to spend some time with them. When do I coach and teach? And this essentially is a calendar template that goes from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. to give you a bit of an idea of how I create a system. And it is important that you create a system or your week is going to be very ad hoc and all over the place. So the way that I do it, I actually do not coach until 10 a.m. in the morning. So that allows me, well, that was when I had kids at home. I wanted to go with my wife and take my kids to school and have an opportunity to talk with them in the morning and all of that. So I started coaching at 10 a.m. So my coaching blocks go from an hour to an hour and a half. And I know most coaches do 45 minutes to an hour, but personally, I feel that giving people an hour up to an hour and a half, I can get so much done in that time. And particularly when you're doing really deep neural work, belief work, and stuff like that, you often need like an hour and a half sometimes. So as you can see, there's a little gap between them. So that way I'm not rushing, going from one client to the next, to the next, to the next, and then being exhausted at the end of the day. One big mistake that I made in the beginning was I never took lunch breaks. And if you leave your diary open, bang, your client will take that time because it's available. They don't know that you haven't had lunch. It is really important for your health, of course, to make sure that you have lunch at a regular time and you've got oodles and oodles of energy when you do that. These are essentially what my coaching looks like. And sometimes, yes, there can be a fifth client, but in the main, I stick to four, and then I'll do a training in the evening that might run for 2.5, 3 hours. That kind of mirrors the rest of my week. It kind of follows that same sort of pattern. And I keep my Fridays for long weekends. And sometimes I use my Fridays to work on the business. And so you can work a 5 day week if you want, or you can work a 4 day week. But I work with clients 4 days and students 4 days a week. The next thing that I want to share is that you can also build online courses. So the programs can either be free or people buy them. But the great thing about it is it means that people can get value from you when you're not even there. So, the Rich Mind program is something that we've built to help people to think in richer ways. Published program is obvious. It's to write a best-selling book. Income Incubator is all about how to build online courses and have them sell while you sleep. And our marketing incubator is how to actually learn how to promote your courses so that people buy them. So that these are just four examples of lots of courses that we have. But building courses is fantastic. I love it. I really enjoy building courses. I love being in front of a camera and speaking. And so, all you have to do is film yourself and then edit that and then put that into a program. And, that way you leverage your expertise. You don't always have to show up. You can just be online too. Another thing that I also love doing is creating downloadable hypnosis. So over the years, we've got well over 100 various products, and these are our kind of like much cheaper end type products. Like they're normally $55 each, but we typically discount these down to $27. And basically, they're all about, if people want to become more creative or tap into their more creative self, if people want to, having difficulty sleeping, if people want to improve their intelligence or their memory or become calmer or more confident. So these are all audios that people often listen to while they sleep. So it can be a fantastic product to, that people can access and get value. Again, a little bit like your actual courses, the same sort of thing. So another thing that can happen in the life of a life coach is they can enjoy speaking on stages. So I speak in small rooms at times, with small groups of people, but then you can speak on bigger stages with a lot more people. And when I start talking about the business models, you'll start to realize that speaking can be a really good skill to get your knowledge out there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So, the next thing that I'd like to talk about is that's my day in the life and some of the things that I do through my week. But now I want to talk about income. So the very first model is business model one. Now, this is how people typically earn under 100,000 as a coach. Then I'm going to talk about business model two, earning over 100,000, and business model three is going to be over a million. And what is the difference between these? So if we consider business model number one, the reason that people earn under 100,000 is because they make these mistakes. They tell everyone they're a coach, they build a business, not products, they don't build systems, and they choose to be invisible. So if you're doing those things, then you can't expect to get anywhere close to 100,000 because, not enough people are seeing you. You don't have enough products for people. You're marketing or selling the wrong thing. And that's typically how people earn under 100,000. But the difference to actually get it up over 100,000 is to basically fix those common mistakes. Now, this is an example of one of my students that I taught him how to actually do this. Now, instead of telling everyone you're a coach, tell everyone your niche. Now, this is a lovely man called Chalkman, very intelligent man. And his niche is conquering performance anxiety in the workplace. So that's what he specializes in, and he sells solutions to that problem. Now, equally, what he does is he also uses the same formula to create niche products. So some people can work with him as a coach or a speaker. Some people can come to his courses, and it's all the same sort of content. So it means that you've got different customers. Some customers will pay you to work with you and have you almost do it for them. And some people prefer to buy your course and do it for themselves. So that's why you often will have something like a coaching program and a course, and you don't necessarily have the same person do both. Sometimes they will, but most of the time they won't. Now, the other thing that you can do is build your systems. So, build your marketing system, build your sales system, and build your product delivery, how you actually deliver your product. Do you do that online? Do you do that in person? And how does it work? So these are really important things to know. And, some people have no idea of marketing. So therefore, you need to have someone do it for you or certainly learn how to do it for you. And marketing, let's not complicate it. Marketing is as simple as, putting a post on social media and saying, hey, do you have this problem? I can help you. Would you like to jump on a free call and we can talk about it? That's marketing. It may not be the cleverest of marketing, but that is marketing. And so systems are really, really important in that context. Now, the other thing, of course, is choose to be visible. But what I suggest is that what you do is you choose one or two at most ways in which you want to be visible. Start a YouTube channel where you upload a lot of your content in video, or you might build a database and send emails to people, explaining the value of what you do and giving them tips. Or what you might do is you might run ads on social media or become a speaker and get up on stages. But at some point, if you want people to know who you are, you really need to think about how do I become more visible? Now, for some coaches, they just go to networking functions and they go to lots and lots of networking functions where they just meet a whole bunch of people, shake hands, share stories, share business cards, and, they get business that way. But sitting at home and hiding yourself is definitely not the way to get to 100,000 plus. So the next model is the one thing that you can do to actually get to a million. Now, a million might sound like a lot of money. It certainly did to me at one point in my life. I thought, oh my God, $1 million? What are you talking about? But the thing is that if you have products and if you leverage your talents, such as get in front of a big audience, what you'll find is people will get your value. Now, personally, I believe that public speaking is probably one of the best skills that you can ever build. Because when you get up on a stage, if you have a lot of knowledge and you get up on stage and you share that knowledge with an audience, what typically happens is you touch the hearts, the minds, and the souls of various individuals sitting in those seats. And I find that whenever I go out and do talks, even if I do small talks to small audiences, I will always get people emailing me or inviting me to come on their stage or inviting me to be part of a group or asking me, can you help me? So that's the one thing that can completely leverage your business. Now, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to make $1 million, but if you get a lot of things right, that is, you get your message right, you get you focus on the right market, the right people, the right problem. If you can get all your ducks in a row as far as that's concerned, you can, in fact, get to $1 million. It is so doable. However, it is a small group of people that get to this level. Not everybody gets to that level. And besides, not everyone wants to earn $1 million anyway. But they are the distinctions between under 100,000 right up to a million plus. So the next thing that I want to talk about is debunk some of the biggest myths around coaching. And those are myth number one is only people with problems need life coaching. That is completely not true. And here are some examples. This is a particular gentleman that he didn't come to me because he had a problem. He came to me because he got a sense that I could help him. And what I helped him to do was to double his income. So he didn't have a problem. He just saw an opportunity. And, this particular lady, this is a beautiful lady that I worked with probably about 4, 5 years ago, I think now. But she was a grandmother back then, and she's still a grandmother now. She said that she believed no one would listen to her, and she built her first online course, and in just a few weeks, she had 1,900 and 2 people enrolled in her course. Now, her biggest challenge was that she had a belief that grandmothers can't use technology and will never succeed online. Well, that's total nonsense, total rubbish. So she didn't have a problem. She saw an opportunity. Now, this beautiful lady has got well over 30,000 people now in her course. She does a course that teaches foreigners how to read English. And that's her course. Very simple. And she's doing a roaring business with her course. So the other myth number two is results come from motivation. A lot of people think that life coaches motivate their clients. Well, yeah, sure, maybe sometimes there's a bit of motivation in there, particularly when a client needs it, but that's not completely true. Like this particular gentleman, Jurgen Mennel, and he said I was on the same income for a decade, and Rick helped me find my limits and remove them. I increased my income by over 100,000. There's a bit of a pattern here, but the pattern is because I specialized as a wealth coach at the very beginning of my coaching career. I helped a lot of people increase their income. Now, he didn't need to be motivated. He was already motivated. Again, what he saw is he saw an opportunity that he knew that he was stuck in his pattern, and it was my job to get him out of that pattern. And in fact, every time I coached him, he told me he earned over 100 grand every time I coached him. So it was all mindset. This particular lady, she didn't need a motive either. But she was really at a bad point. She was depressed, and she was starting to think about ending her life. So, you know, her results really depended on her own motivation. Like she was the one that reached out to me. I didn't reach out to her. So, life coaching is not about motivation, but yet you're working quite often with motivated people, people who get a sense that you can help them, and people who get a sense that you know what you're doing. So, the other myth number three, and this used to be a common one, this particular myth, life coaching isn't evidence based. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense, particularly when we start bringing NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and psychology into the game. So this myth is outdated. Modern coaching is supported by a substantial and growing body of scientific research, particularly when it uses structured, goal-focused, psychologically informed methods delivered by well-trained practitioners. And, you know, there are so many science-based tools that we're using now in coaching. It sounds like a conversation quite often from the client's perspective. They kind of feel like you're just talking with them. But if you're really using your science, you are being very, very specific in your language. And of course, Andre, you're well aware of NLP and the value of language. So the next thing that I want to jump to is I want to jump into skills and expertise. If you want to be really successful, what do you actually need to know? So the thing that you've got to understand is when you're taking anyone on a journey, what you're literally doing is you're taking a person step by step towards their goal. So, the third myth that life coaching isn't evidence-based, let me give you a sample of how scientific life coaching actually is these days. So the skills and expertise, how do you help people to take the steps to success? Well, the GROW model, which was really made famous by Sir John Whitmore, the GROW model is a fantastic model that is a series of questions that help people to get really, really clear. Then, Belief Change by Richard Bandler, one of the creators of neuro-linguistic programming. Sometimes people won't take the next step because they have a belief that is really getting in the way. Then, of course, there's a logical levels therapy by Dr. Robert Dilts, an exceptional model which really shows you how to start building the process of helping someone to achieve by taking them through very logical, structural processes and stages and phases to actually help them to get success. And a very, very clever model. Then you've got timeline therapy by Dr. Fritz Perls, which is superb. This one tool I find I use again and again and again and again. It is very much getting into a process with a client. But when a client says to you that I don't know why I can't succeed, or I don't know why I'm not doing the thing that I know I should be doing, then you typically take them through a timeline therapy process to help them to shift that block that is really stopping them, which is usually created in the past, hence timeline. Another model is the meta model by Dr. Virginia Satir. And Virginia Satir was the mother of family therapy, they called her. And she was so good with her line of questionings, which is what we teach in NLP, the meta model, which really helped families come together and helped to remove many of the blame game techniques that people would use on each other in families. And her work is just absolutely superlative. Then, of course, there's the values work by Tim Helbam and Susie Smith, which is values is really quite important, as that most people don't realize that values is the rudder of your boat. What you value, what you think is most important to you, is unconsciously guiding you through your life. Now, if you end up in a place that you're not really happy with, it's time to do some values work. Then, of course, there's parts integration by John Grinder, and that's about getting rid of any particular conflicts that people have. And, so a conflict, for example, if someone's building a business and they're struggling, sometimes it can come down to a very small conflict, but it's huge in that it's stopping the person from progressing. And that conflict can sound like, I really want to grow my business, or I really want to start my business, but part of me thinks that I'm not smart enough to do that. That is a conflict. And a parts integration is an NLP technique. Again, we teach that in our life coach and NLP practitioner training. And that is an incredible tool to just help get rid of conflicts. And then, of course, there's Ericksonian hypnotherapy by Dr. Milton Erickson, who was the guy who actually brought hypnosis into the therapies. And Milton Erickson was a genius. He really, really was. His mastery of words and how words affect neurology and how you can shift people just by talking to them. And I've got to say, the Ericksonian hypnotherapy is something that I use in every single coaching session I do. Whether I'm being very pragmatic and practical, I am still using Ericksonian hypnotherapy language, because quite often what it does is it helps your client feel like they can do what you're asking them to do. And, that can sometimes remove blocks just by speaking with them. So they're the sorts of skills and expertise, if you really want to make a name for yourself and if you really want to get good at being that therapist, that person who is helping people. So this particular gentleman, Harv Eker is his name, totally sums it up in that my inner world creates my outer world. And, he was most notably known for building gyms. And he realized that his mindset had everything to do with growing businesses. And this particular gentleman, who basically is saying the same thing, but slightly in reverse, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, Joe Dispenza. So learning the science of changing a person's inner world makes everything so much easier, because what you're doing is you're helping to shift a person's mindset. So something that they thought they couldn't do, eventually they get to a point where they say, I can do it. And that's all mindset quite often. It's not always skill. So the big question is, I've been talking a lot about NLP. The question is, who benefits from actually learning neuro-linguistic programming? And business owners, most definitely. Over the years, we've had a lot of business owners come into our programs because they can become better business owners with better understanding of how their brain works. Parents, couples, it helps them be able to navigate some of those complexities that all us parents face. And coaches, therapists, and healers, in all honesty, I don't believe you're a coach, therapist, and healer without NLP. It is such an incredible skill, and all the people that are coaches, therapists, and healers that have come into our program have said, "Oh my God, I wish I had learnt this even back when I was in school." It can make a big, big difference. And of course, it's good for you if you want to grow personally as well. So the way that we really benefit from NLP is if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow your career, if you want to grow yourself, we've got to get out of our fixed mindset and we've got to get into a growth mindset. You're not going to grow without a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is when we become very limited in our belief about how the world works. Like, for example, we believe that it's hard to run a business, it's hard to succeed at business. Well, that might be what you've heard, but hey, there are a lot of business owners that have been running very successful businesses for a long, long time. But there are a lot of negative Nancy's, and they hear these negative things and they believe that it's gospel. So the way to get out of that, out of a fixed mindset, is to begin to learn how to grow your mindset. And that's really, in a summary, what learning NLP is all about. So I'm going to move fairly quickly for you guys for this, but I've got to say this for the recording. So most of you know that I struggled financially, professionally, and socially for the first 40 years of my life. I really, really did. But it was when I got down to only having $27 in my bank and was threatened with homelessness that I actually really applied all the skills that I had learned through NLP. And I also suffered with anxiety and alcohol dependency and depression, you know, which meant I was sad for most of my life. And in 2004, I learned NLP and I wrote my first book after using it. And I skyrocketed my income, my anxiety, alcohol, and depression disappeared. I used to think I was shy. I don't believe I'm shy at all. But that particular book, it really launched my business. It got a lot of people interested in what I was doing. And what it did, and both you, Patricia, and Andre, you're both writing books, which is awesome because I would say that my very first book really brought my very first clients. It really, really did. And now I've been coaching for 24 years. I'm a brain untrainer with actually now 40,000 hours of transformational work experience. I won the 2023 and 2024 APAC International Award for Transformational Coaching. And NLP gave me so much. I wrote another 6 best-selling books. And by the way, folks, I'm going to show you how to turn your book into a bestseller as well. So the reason that I'm so focused on the mindset is Gerald Zaltman, he's a Harvard professor, rightly said that 95% of thought, emotion, and learning occur in the unconscious mind. That is, without awareness. In other words, 95% of our behaviors and everything we do is unconscious. So if you want to change the behaviors, you've got to get down to the unconscious levels to change behavior. And so, for example, you might be working with someone who is really struggling. Now, quite often, and this is where timeline becomes really, really helpful. And I've done tens of thousands of timelines with people. And quite often you're working with someone that's really struggling as a speaker. It scares them. It makes them sweat. It makes them stutter, stammer, and and all of that. And the reason quite often for that, when I do coaching with them, is I discovered that as a child, they were punished for something like speaking up in class. Now that punishment is showing up in their lives as an adult because they've been wired to believe that speaking up is wrong, bad, or you're going to get in trouble as a result of it. Some people even suggest that some of these problems come from past lives, like witch burning ceremonies and all of those crazy things that happened a long, long time ago, where there was an estimated well over, 6 million people who were burned at stakes and drowned with rocks and all sorts of ludicrous things. Now, another thing is some people might find that when they speak to strangers, they get really nervous. Now, if you think about it, as many kids, their parents think they're doing the right thing, and they are to some degree. But what they're doing is they're telling the child, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers. And then all of a sudden you grow up and you become an adult, and then your boss says, go out and do this presentation to the board. And all of a sudden you're looking at a whole bunch of strangers looking at you, and you're wondering, why do I feel so damn nervous? And quite often, what it's coming from is very early programming. Now, another one that I come up a lot is being told you don't deserve money. And this sometimes is why you actually can't keep it. And I'll give you a really good example of this. I was working with a lady who wanted me to help her with her money stuff. And she's Lebanese. Her father was taking their family to Greece, and they got on the cruise, and her father handed money to her brother and said, "Here, this is your spending money while you're on the cruise. Don't ask for any more. That's it." And then she's a bit younger. She automatically put out her hand, and he said the dumbest thing of all. He said, "Girls are not good with money. You don't get any." This was the thing that I had to undo and unravel to help her to earn more money. And this is how profound things can be sometimes. What happened was within a short period of time, and I can't recall how long it took, but within a short period of time, she contacted me after our coaching and she said, Rick, you're not going to believe this. I have picked up a $600,000 contract. Now, I'm still coaching her. She came back and got some more coaching further down the track. And she said to me just recently, she said, you remember that goal that I set for making $3 million in a year? And I said, yes. And she said, this is the year. She said, we've made over $3 million. And so don't underestimate sometimes, the programming that happens at a very, very young age. And I'm sure, Patricia, you totally get this, as do you, Andre. So what I'm really talking about is getting that edge as a therapist, as a coach, as a healer, is the NLP advantage. So the thing is, this particular course, we teach it fully. We teach the theory and the practice, and we encourage you to apply what you've learned in the actual course. Now, the way that we do this, now I'll give you an example. In the course, we teach how to actually change beliefs, and beliefs are often critical to people's success. Like if you don't believe that you can do something, you will not even try. So quite often, before we get someone to actually do the thing that they want to do, sometimes what we have to do is change a belief before they actually will do the activity that they're really wanting to do. So, for example, in our course, in learning how to change a belief, the very first thing that we've got to talk about is what are beliefs? What actually are they? How do we get them? How do they go into our neurology? How do they stay there? What parts of the brain are affected? And we go very, very deep in understanding what beliefs actually are. So everyone's really clear on what beliefs are. The next thing that we do is how do we change a belief? So in the course, we follow this same structure. So what we need to do now is demonstrate how do you actually change a belief in a person. So we choose from the pool of students that we have in the course, and we ask someone, hey, do you have a belief that's not serving you? And then they volunteer. And then we then work with them to change a belief. So we're actually working with real people with real stuff so you can see real change. And then the next thing that we're going to do is then we're going to encourage you, that is the rest of the class, to work out what beliefs do you have that need to change. And we give you lots of examples. And we also, prior to this module, we set you up for this. So you're already getting your brain ready for determining what beliefs are holding you back. And then we put you into a breakout room where you use the tools that we've taught you, and then you change each other's beliefs. So we put you in a room of two, typically, and one person pretends they're the coach, the other plays the client, and then you change a belief and then you swap. Then the coach becomes the client becomes the coach. So you get to experience it for yourself. Then what we do is we get you back in the room, we talk about it, talk about what you learned, talk about what you experienced. And then what we do is we encourage practice. So we then give you home play so that we typically set you up in what we call triads, like groups of three, and one of you becomes a coach, client, and observer, and then you swap and you go through a process of, coach, client, observer, and that's to practice the techniques so that you can get good at it, so that you can now do that with other clients. But the great news is you get to change your own beliefs that are limiting you through the actual course. So, when do we teach this course? This particular course, we have, of course, lots of busy people enroll. Here's our model again. So, we run weekly trainings that run for 2 to 3 hours. And if you've got a 168-hour week, it's really just a very small block of time. And we do that every week for a period of about 35 weeks. And our next course is starting very soon on the 28th of July. It runs from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And of course, sometimes it'll go to 10, but typically 2.5 to 3 hours. And what we do this, we will be doing this every Tuesday night. And if you happen to miss a course, we record it so you can go back to it and you can listen and learn and watch it again. And also, that means that it's there for you for life as well. So you can keep watching it over and over again. So, how to get started in this particular course and take your coaching to a whole new level is this is essentially what's inside the full course. Now, I can't give you everything because the course runs over 35 weeks. It's an enormous amount of stuff that you learn. But just to give you a sense of it, you learn foundational. So, we learn from the GROW model right up through Ericksonian hypnotherapy, timeline, logical levels, parts integration, and there's a whole lot more coaching skills that you learn in this particular program. It helps you to stop negative emotions from influencing you, helps you to change your traumatic past for good. You're able to manage and master your emotions and change your limiting beliefs. And also, it has specialized tools to improve your money mindset and how to identify your limits and remove them for good. So, a lot of neuro-linguistic programming is really just removing a lot of the limits, the things that you tell yourself, the beliefs you have, the patterns you have, so you can remove them for good and discover the power of hypnosis to change neural pathways. Now, there's a whole bunch more. You discover how to uncover everything that's stopping you. You learn how the wealthy come to think and be that way. You get one-on-one coaching inside the program to advance you. And you master 4 styles of English to improve your communication. And yes, there are 4 different styles of English. And this is why sometimes you're speaking English in a Western world and some people just can't understand you. So you learn a lot about communication in this particular course as well. You learn how to build rapport with anyone, and that's important because when you're working with people, it is really, really important to help them to feel comfortable in your space. So learning how to build rapport is a very critical skill, particularly when you're working with lots and lots of people. You get problem-solving models that make problems vanish. You learn a technique that removes food and drinks completely from your life if there's a particular food or drink that people are addicted to or struggling with. This technology is so advanced that you can even shift a drink or food that you're stuck on and it gets you unstuck. You also improve your memory and your ability to learn. It shows you how you do that using very specific NLP tools. Now, there's a lot of things that we're doing, but here is our 9-point advantage. So this is how the course works. So the very first part of the course is there's a manual, and the manual is huge. It's a big A4 manual that's got 550 pages. So it's a pretty big manual. There's a lot of information in there. Everything that is in the course is in the manual. You also get some audios, and the audios are there because some people prefer to read, some people prefer to hear. So the audios are there so you can listen to the audios before the training so that you can start to become familiar with some of the phrases and terms. And, there's always a lot of linguistics around learning. Then, of course, there's the 35 modules that you attend live, or if you miss any, they're recorded. You do coaching outside of the actual course. Now, that's not a prerequisite. You don't have to do that. We would encourage you to do that, and it's not going to cost you any more. And but the great thing is, it really deepens the knowledge. Practice, perfect practice makes perfect. It really does. The more you practice, the better you get. We also give you the marketing incubator, so you learn how to actually position yourself and sell yourself. And that's really, really helpful in building your client base. There are three certificates in this. The accredited certificates are NLP practitioner, Ericksonian hypnotherapist, and you also get a life coaching certificate as well. So they're the three certificates, and they're accredited through the NLPAA, which means that it is a national certification here in Australia and it is recognized all around the world. So it means you can work in Australia, you can work in America, you can work in England, Ireland, wherever you choose. So basically, it has three accredited certificates that you get on complete. Of course, you have to complete the course. There is a very small assessment that you have to do as well, and there is a minimum attendance required also. Now, there's a fast track page, meaning that every time we finish a particular module, it goes onto a website and you get special access to that website. And it means that you can then rewatch any of the modules so that, if you feel like you want a refresher or you want to learn it even more deeply and repeat the course, you can do that again and again and again. So you get lifetime access to that. So that's our 9 point advantage. There's a lot of things that we're giving you in this particular course to make it stick. So what we've also done is we've also incorporated some bonuses as well. So the marketing incubator, as I've mentioned, that you get that as a bonus with the course. So that's actually valued at $5,000, that particular course. That comes free with this particular course. Then there is also another program, which is, we call it our Millionaire Master Academy. And this is really about building a mindset that makes money a friend instead of making an enemy, and it makes it easy to talk about money. It makes it easy to, make more money because a lot of people limit their income based on how they think about money. And some of those examples, like Hector and Jurgen, who both doubled their incomes, that was all around how they thought about money, and it's incredible what happens when you shift that. So that too is valued at 4,997. That comes as a bonus with the course. These bonuses sit on the fast track page, so you can, tune into those bonuses. The moment you enroll, you can start watching those courses and learning from them, or you can do them at the very end, after you've done the actual life coach and NLP prac course. Completely up to you. Now, basically, this is the full course. So the 35 modules. You get some support sessions as well. You get 6 30-minute Zoom sessions to guide and mentor you and support you through the program. And you get also 12 months unlimited email access to answer any of your questions as you're going through the course and for the rest of the year. And there's the marketing incubator, the Millionaire Master Academy, and the total value, in fact, is $18,000 of this whole program. But what we've done is we've basically reduced that dramatically. And there's a QR code there that you can just get your phone on it and it'll take you straight to this particular page. And what you'll find is that what we have actually done is we have reduced it to 2,997 for all of this. And of course, that's Australian dollars, and you can pay up front and get the biggest discount, or you can put it on a 12-month payment plan, or you can even put it on a 24-month payment plan so you get the benefit of the course and just pay it off over time. Or you can schedule a call to talk further about the course. If you do that, if you schedule a call, you come onto my calendar, you just book a time. So basically, the entire program is 2997. We have made this ridiculously low. And the reason that we've made this ridiculously low is because there's a lot of people out there in the world that are hurting right now. The more people who learn these skills means the more people that can go out and help more people. And I love teaching this course. I love seeing people come out of this course graduated with all of these extra skills and shifting all of these issues and problems that they had in their lives. And it's a very rewarding course to teach. So the 12-month payments are 277 and the 24-month payments are 177. So we've made this so incredibly affordable and we've discounted it dramatically. For those of you that, haven't made the webinar, I'll be sure to give this to you, but do make sure that you click on the links, before Sunday midnight, so that you get it for the 2997. So there's a lot of money off this course. That's it for the webinar. So thank you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to helping you grow in 2026.